going to speak on this. So where am I? One sec. Yeah. Right. Gender discrimination, sexism, and inequality. I always looked at sexism as slightly different from gender discrimination, but whatever it is, basically they resemble each other. So I'm going to be looking at three perspectives in this 20 minutes I'm given. And one is to see how this developed. How did patriarchy or the whole concept of the male superiority develop? Secondly, what is the humanist view on the gender inequality or gender equality? And I want to look at a managerial view, like Tasmin said, I've been a manager in the Mint and in the railways. So based on that, I want to give some perspectives. Now, one of the things which was a reality during the early days, during the caveman days and the barbarian days, was basically you needed muscle power to be able to provide food for the table. Whether it was going and hunting or whether it was giving protection from enemies, muscle power became important. Now, sorry, I forgot to say, I'm not looking at corporate injustice, though we can discuss that in question and answer if you have issues. I'm looking at more societal injustice which takes place. And in the society, what happened was muscle power was what is able to provide food and security for the family. And so men started becoming dominant. So there we could call it the era of muscle, when the hunter-gatherers and basic farming, you really needed that kind of physique to be able to sustain a family. And so the family tended to become dependent upon the male. So the women and children became dependent upon the man or the house or the male to provide them the security which was required. And so they slowly degenerated into second-class status. And the whole mindset of gender superiority, that the male is superior to the female, came because of this reality which was there in the world, that to provide the basic necessities for the house, you needed that kind of muscle power, which the men had and the women did not have. Unfortunately, this concept of gender superiority which came, the men started misusing that to start dominating and saying that we are the natural leaders or the natural head of society. And the patriarchal misuse of this started creating a society where men were considered superior or more important than women. And in fact, they went to such an extent that they built it into the religion also. So if you look at most religions, whether it's Judaism or Hinduism, and interestingly, even in some forms of Christianity, you will find that gender inequality has been built into their belief system to make sure that the women remain under the oppression or suppression of the men and in the patriarchal system. So this was how the whole thing developed as a natural development within society. Now, the second issue which is very important today is money power. So what happens? This is a question which we really need to look at. Is my value based upon what I can earn and bring to the table? Or is my value coming from the fact that I'm a human being? So what happens in today's mercenary environment? Your value is linked to your salary, which you can earn and which you can draw. And it's got nothing to do with your humanity. But in societies which are more humane and which have got a more of a understanding of these issues, you will find that a person is treated valuable even if he brings nothing to the table. This is what a humanistic approach is. Basically, it says that the value of a person comes because he or she is a human being, and it's got nothing to do with what is the earning power of that person. So a person may be handicapped, a person may be severely handicapped, who cannot earn anything, or a person may be a vegetable state because of some injury, but still that person will be valued and cared for and looked after like anyone else. So the value of the person is not linked to the person's money power, but is linked to the person being a human being. So this is the humanistic approach which fights or contests the present worldview that everything is linked to money. So I'm not speaking about a marketable value. That means this is not a value at which you can be sold, but this is the value to be treated as an equal human being. So as long as you're a human being, you have the right to be treated as an equal human being. And it is not linked to the salary you can earn, because salary and commercial issues are totally different and has got nothing to do with the value of a human being. So we are not speaking of roles here. The roles are not interchangeable for men and women, as we saw in those questionnaires which Carol put up. But we are speaking of the value, whether you're male, female, adult, child, old age, young age, anything, you have the same value as an individual in society. So that is something which needs to be there and which needs to be taught to the people, and people need to start practicing it. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. So what basically we look at, that male, female, or any person, why worry about male, female? If there are any two persons, they have different skills and different temperaments. And they are meant to complement each other, not oppose each other. So if you look at your thumb and your fingers, they are opposing each other, but they are complementary and they support each other. Without a finger, the thumb becomes useless. Without a thumb, the finger becomes useless. But because they are in opposite directions, you will find that they become useful and they can work as a team. So basically, we need to understand that every individual, whether it's a child or a woman or a man or a person who's 80 and can't do much, they all have got skills and they complement each other. And so we need to recognize that they all have value as a human being. So that means instead of working as a dictatorship, where the person who's having the economic strength or the person who's having the physical strength kind of dominates and controls everything, saying, I'm the boss, they need to start working as a team where they cooperate with each other and they see how they can produce the best results by complementing each other. Where one is weak, the other one steps in. Where one is strong, the other one lets the person take the leadership. So you find that this complementary nature, which is what basically you find in the teaching in the Bible, that God made man and woman to be complementary with each other. And that is what enabled them to respect each other and to treat each other as human beings. So if you look at male and female, and now this is basically something I got from Vandana Shiva. Vandana Shiva is an environmentalist activist, but I found some of her perspectives very interesting. So she said that now if you give a gift to a male, like you give it to me, and you observe what the male will do, he will tear off the wrapping, throw the wrapping away, and take out the gift because that's what he wants to get at. So he says that men are essentially achievers who want to achieve their goal as quickly as possible. Whereas women, if you give the same gift to a woman, you'll find that she will not tear off the wrapping. She will carefully unwrap it and preserve the wrapping and see that the wrapping can be reused and then get the gift. So she said that basically temperamentally, women are preservers, men are destroyers. Men will destroy anything to achieve their objective. Women will preserve things and see that they achieve their objective by preserving things. Now remember, she's an environmentalist. So she was basically talking about destruction to society, nature, and the green movement. But it's an interesting perspective. And so we need to see how these two can complement each other, where the man is able to achieve and the woman is able to preserve, and the two work together as equals in a team so that both are achieved. And we can see this very effectively in the whole role of childbearing and rearing, where the role of the woman and the role of the man is different, and how they function in that environment is different. And basically that is where the complementary nature of the man and woman is required. Unfortunately, many men kind of abandon child rearing to the woman, but his skill is also needed. And women's skill is also needed. And both need to complement each other to bring up the child in a proper manner. So if the value is at par, should the treatment be different? So that is the question which really needs, what we're trying to address and look at. So what happens? How do we treat people at work? When I visited Chick-fil-A headquarters in the United States, Chick-fil-A, by the way, for those who are not aware, is something like McDonald's. They have these outlets where they serve burgers and things like that. But when I went to the headquarters, I was being taken around by the owner of the company, the family which owns the company. And every staff, from the lowest to the highest, they call them by first name and they are so free and they laugh. And everyone is treated as equal, irrespective of the level of status in the company. I have not seen an organization like that, and I'm truly amazed to see. Now, that is really what needs to happen, where your role may be one, but you're treated as a human being, and we work together to achieve a common goal or an objective. And that is really how it needs to be. Now, even within the family, I.K. Puri was one of my early bosses in the railways. He had a servant, and the servant had children. Now, he treated the servant's children just like his own, so that there's no differentiation between his children and the servant's children. He saw that the servant's children were also educated and became engineers just like his children. And he says, we are basically at par. Now, it happens that the role is a servant, but I need to treat them with dignity and treat them with equality. But this is something that really amazed me to see for the first time in my life. So does being a leader give you more value than others? That I'm the manager of the office or I'm the head of the house means that you must bow down before me and I can treat you like dirt. That's not true. In fact, see, when I was working in Trivandrum division in the railways, I got a phone call from my foreman saying, sir, the new assistant engineer who just joined, he came to the workplace and he suspended one of the workers. So I asked him, why did he suspend him? I said, sir, you better ask him. So I called that officer and asked him, why did you suspend him? He said, you know, sir, when I was walking around the work area, he saw me and he ignored me. He didn't even salute me. He did not even wish me. I told him, don't be an idiot. You earn your right to be saluted when you prove yourself. Till then, please reinstate him. And you cannot treat people as if they are your servants. They are not. We are all working the government together. So this is the kind of mentality which we have grown up with, where we tend to think that a person who earns less than me, who is lower in the rank in the organization, needs to kowtow to me and treat me as if I'm something superior. And that is the mindset that really needs to go for me to be a truly humane person as God wanted us to be. Now, if you look at the Indian home, what happens? You'll find that the sons are treated as more important than girls. So the son is allowed to play. The girl is not. The girl is supposed to go and clean the kitchen and supposed to help in the kitchen and clean the house and all. But the son will play. And I said, why? If the son can play, the girl can play. And if the girl is cleaning the kitchen, then the son also needs to help. Now you will say that no, he's male, so the role is different. I said, maybe different. But then find something else for him to do which you think is most suitable to his role. But you cannot have one playing and the other working. Food, this is very, very common in India. If you cook a nice chicken, I hope you're not, most of you are non-veg only. You cook a good chicken and the choicest parts of the chicken is kept for the male members of the house, the father and the sons. The daughters never even get it. They don't even get a chance to taste it. That is the norm which you find in the Indian homes. How is that just? Aren't they human beings like the others? And can't they be treated on par? Educational. The boys will be given the best of education, the girls will not. Argument being the boys will look after us in our old age, the girls not necessarily. So we don't invest in them. I said it's not a question of them looking after you in your old age or anything like that. The question is they are a human being like anyone else. And all human beings need to be treated at par. So can we stop this kind of injustice, at least in the families which we raise? And daughters-in-law issue is something we don't need to talk about. Everyone is aware how daughter-in-law are treated because their own parents have told them that you're married now, so don't trouble us. And their in-laws treat them badly. And so they are really become second-class citizens in the world where nobody cares for them. Now, this is the reality of India. And we need to see that this can be reversed. And we start recognizing that as human beings, we are all the same. Now, in the Indian context, what I've found, women are seen as people to be married off as quickly as you can so that you're no longer responsible for them and then they are out. So in Madurai, there was one man who was married to a woman who was bringing other women to the house. And when the wife ran away to her parents' only counsel was, you need to stay with your husband. So the parents don't support, the husband doesn't support, and she's caught in this kind of a mess. Of course, I advised that you divorce him, and that she did. But a sadder case was one girl runs away to her parents and says, my husband is trying to kill me. They said, no, don't be so melodramatic. And so they sent her back and the husband killed her. So this is the situation which we find women in India. And basically the parents have written them off, saying that they are not our responsibility. And that is sad. That means you don't even see them as human beings. You see them as a burden which needs to be got rid of. In Raxol I went, there was a girl, and I'm talking about 5 years back, I'm not talking about ancient history. At the age of 13, she was married. At the age of 14, she had a miscarriage. Her in-laws threw her out because she had a miscarriage. Her parents don't want her because she is an unnecessary burden. And so she's sitting there at home. Till we went in to try and start educating her and giving her a second life by educating her. So this is the reality of what is happening in terms of gender injustice in the country. And we need to be aware of that. Because of the high female infanticide and suicides, you'll find that for every 108 males, there are only 100 females. So 10% of the women are missing. And that's a reality within India. And the other day, somebody wrote to me saying, I've been married for 17 years and I've got 2 daughters. Please pray that I have a son. So I wrote back to her saying that God has blessed you with 2 brilliant daughters. Why do you want a son? Of course, he never spoke to me after that. You try renting an apartment as a woman, you'll find that it's not easy. People do not want to give the apartments on rent to women. They will give it to men, but they will not give it to women with children if the husband is not there. So these are the kinds of discrimination which takes place. And because of this, India has the highest female suicide rate in the world in the age group of 15 to 25. Now, this is something which is absolutely shocking. And we need to recognize that there is a problem in India which needs to be dealt with. Okay. So what happens when people are treated as inferior, they begin to behave as if they're inferior. In fact, Argyle wrote a book on management. He said, listen, if we keep treating your workers as children, they'll become children. So if you start treating people as if inferior, they begin to behave as if they're inferior. And when they begin to behave as if they're inferior, it confirms their inferiority. And you say, see, I told you they're inferior. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and a circular argument on the inferiority of the weak. Whereas the same weak person, if the person is convinced that the person has got some identity and some skills which a person can develop, the person can be transformed. But what has happened by the years of oppression, over thousands of years of oppression, you will find that certain groups of people, women as well as men, have begun to think that they are inferior and will not pull themselves up. And that is sad. So in India, what has happened, the women's psyche has been totally crushed. And we as the new generation which is coming up, the 21st generation, 21st century generation, we need to see that this trend is reversed in India and women are supported and built up so that they can fulfill the role which nature has created for them and called them. So what happened? The vertical patriarchal societies and class systems need to be replaced by horizontal and relational structures. So today we find that even in the home, the authority is vertical, the father at the head and then the mother and then the children at the bottom. And that needs to be replaced by horizontal relationship structure, relational structures, rather than this kind of vertical patriarchal societies. So patriarchy needs to be got rid of, and we need to come in with this. And basically, this is a trend around the world. Like if you go to any management college, all management colleges will now teach you servant leadership. So they say you don't, the vertical structure is head and can work far more effectively as a horizontal structure and not vertical. So what happens in a horizontal structure? All lead in their area of expertise. And this is where the macho man fails. The macho man thinks, I am the leader, I have to lead everywhere. But he doesn't have to lead everywhere. He has to let people lead in their areas of expertise. He needs to be listening and talking to them and giving them an opportunity to speak so that the complementary leadership which they give can become a part of the leadership structure. And this is another area where the macho man tends to fail, but he only listens to his own voice. He doesn't listen to the voice of others. And so this is an outdated management style, which is now slowly going away. But it's difficult because patriarchy is so strongly built into society that people find it difficult to give it up. Since all lead and all are listened to, there is no social hierarchy in servant leadership. There is only a managerial hierarchy, that's one person is the boss. But otherwise, all are treated as equal and all contribute towards the decisions which are being taken and the solutions which are being worked out. So with this kind of leadership style coming in, women are becoming far more comfortable in the workplace and they are becoming playing a very major role in the workplace with this kind of leadership style. So the managerial hierarchy needs to be seen as servant leadership and not as a dominant patriarchal leadership, but as a servant leadership where I am here to see that everyone is able to fulfill their roles and be what they are meant to be. So in servant leadership, what happens? In patriarchy, your leadership comes from my strength, my dominance, and my power which I have. Whereas in servant leadership, your leadership comes from your character because people trust you because of the kind of person you are and the way in which you treat people. They trust you and you have knowledge in your area of expertise, and where you have no expertise, you shut up and you let others speak. So because of this, you find that people start accepting you and following your leadership, not because of your dominance and strength. And most importantly, communication. They communicate freely and well, an area where many men fail. So this is really what really needs to happen in society today, that man, instead of trying to dominate and use the muscle power, he needs to start developing character, knowledge, and communication. And you will find that everyone is going to benefit from that. So it's leadership is not a position, but it's a role which we play in society. Now, the reality is, in most scenarios, patriarchal vertical leadership is the norm. It's a reality of life and we need to be changed. It has changed in many countries, by the way. Scandinavian countries and others, it has changed to horizontal leadership. But in India and many other countries, it is still very much a patriarchal vertical leadership. And in a patriarchal vertical leadership, you cannot have two leaders. You cannot have two-headed monsters. And so it becomes a problem. But if a servant horizontal leadership is practiced, whether it's in the family or whether it's the workplace or whether it's anywhere else, you will find that you can have multiple leadership and everyone is treated as equal, but there is one person who's the head who enables us to reach to an agreeable decision. So that is the way in which we need to be going, rather than trying to fight who's better, man is better or woman is better or who's what. That is the wrong road to take. A woman does not need to take on male roles. In fact, that is one of the mistakes which was made. A woman needs to take on roles where she finds fulfillment. She doesn't need to compete with man. She needs to be treated as an equal partner and not inferior or weaker, a mindset that male finds difficult. So what has happened, and this is a big mistake made by many women, they started advocating gender blindness. They said whether we are male or female, we are the same, which is not true. So gender blindness is not a solution, and it does not see the strengths of the other sex, but tends to compare them at the same yardstick. So what happened? Man had muscle power, then man had economic power, and now I'm comparing women based on muscle power and economic power. I don't need to. You cannot compare apples and oranges or oranges and lemons. They are two totally different things. So I don't need to compare men and women and see who's better or who's superior or who's there. I need to see that both are able to fulfill their roles and are allowed to fulfill their roles and allowed to fulfill their strengths because of the servant leadership which we practice. The gender blindness tries to interchange roles, which is not necessary or advisable. And I find this all over the place where women are trying to compete with men. I said, don't. Do what you are, God created you to do. Do what you are suited for. Do what your strengths are. And don't worry about the men. So each can do their roles and be treated with respect, not trying to outdo each other. So what are women's strengths? One is we said that women are preservers rather than destroyers. Now let me give you another quote from Vandana Shiva. What Vandana Shiva said, men developed this patriarchal system because of their muscle power and their economic power. But today the world has changed. Today the world has changed and muscle power is something which is no longer needed. What is needed is the ability to preserve, the ability to relate, and the ability to form teams and to function as teams. And men are totally lost in this new environment. And because they are lost in this new environment, they are literally misfits in society and dysfunctional. And so they are struggling. And that is why they create so much havoc in the world. Now, we may not agree with Vandana Shiva's observations, but the point she is making is very well taken. Patriarchy is dead and dying, and patriarchy needs to be buried. We need to move into a servant leadership style, which is what the world is teaching and everyone is teaching. And in India, the servant leadership style is an absolute must. If we want to see the emancipation of women and they being able to fulfill their roles rather than trying to compete with men. So men can let women lead. There's absolutely nothing wrong in that. If a woman is more capable in leading in that particular area where they are. So we need to understand that there is nothing automatic that a man leads. Anyone can lead, but a leadership has to be a servant leadership where everyone is respected and treated with equality. And that does not happen in India. I have got so many horror stories that let's recognize it doesn't happen in India. So the challenge I want to give you is, can we treat all with respect and dignity? I'm not talking only men treating women with respect and dignity, but I think, can you treat your servant with respect and dignity? Can you treat the handicapped with respect and dignity? Can you help people without humiliating them? But that is really the question which we really need to be looking at also. Can we treat all with equality? And can we be true human beings in our life, which God has called us to lead, be a blessing to people? So that's basically the message which I had for you today. And I